Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Um, Thanks for joining the AWS Carpenter Provider Triage. Or is this, let me double check, is this the triage or working group meeting? I think it's working
It should
group.
be the triage for provider.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
great. So what we'll do, we can go ahead and see where see what needs investigation or just needs triage first. Only 19 that haven't been reviewed recently, so that's good. So we were looking at this, or I was looking at this section, my commute in. Looks like there was some startup taints that were being added to a node, and as a result, the node was not being considered schedulable for a pod. Looks like Jason, you had mentioned a bunch on this.
Yeah, this one slipped on me. I just need to go through and close it, I think. I don't think there was anything outstanding here.
Yeah, I mean, the original poster has their issue resolved. Again, the Cilium startup taint was being added, and they had to add it to their startup taints in their node pool. After that, it resolved.
Yeah. I can go ahead and take a look at this last comment maybe after and just go ahead and close this. I'll get that done today.
I'm gonna go ahead and put triage solved.
Actually, you know what? That works as well. Just let it auto.
Yeah, version webhook, hard coded, a kube system namespace. So this would be moving the conversion webhooks to the Karpenter namespace as opposed to kube system. It's got quite a bunch of people interested in it.
Think, was there anything outstanding here though? I know Leia, you had taken a look at this a few weeks ago at this point, I think. Do you remember seeing anything outstanding? I think really we just need to be pointing people to the Carpenter CRD chart, which I know isn't um, the best solution for everyone, but it is a solution that works and gets people over this migration hump.
Yeah, that's where I was at as well.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're going to go back and do anything different at this point for the
I don't,
V1 migration.
I don't either. So I think here people have talked about being able to apply namespace, how it works. I think we can just say provided the workarounds present in this thread, closing. Or marking as solved.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Then we can leave it open, mark it triage solved, let it auto close.
Yep, sounds good. I think this is more or less the same, right?
Yeah. Someone saying, not sure why we're relying on Helm functionality. Hmm.
I
I
we've
think
provided a number of workarounds in this thread. As far as I know, this hasn't really like no one's came to working group and or anything and described why this is truly a hard blocker for them. Um,
I think even
yeah.
off,
Hmm?
I think exactly offering to join the working group to discuss if it's a hard blocker. I think that's fine. And then mark it as solved.
I think so because I think a lot of the pain was we don't want to manage these two charts separately long term.
Right.
But the separate chart should only be required for the initial like V1 beta 1 to V1 migration. I mean, yeah, anyone can. I know we have quite a few people from the community here. Please feel free to speak up if this was like a massive pain point that we should address, but my impression is it really wasn't, and it would. Okay, cool. Think we can move on.
Let's see. Node claim belonging to a node stopped for retirement was not cleared from the cluster. Node belonging to the claim was no longer on the cluster. Carpenter tried to schedule a pod on that specific node claim, but the underlying node was gone. No interruption queue configured. And all health events, if I remember correctly, rely on this being present, right?
I mean, this should still get caught. I think that was Jason's point.
Yeah, my impression, it should have been cleaned up by the garbage collector eventually. Potentially, they mentioned that the instance was stopped rather than terminated. We rely on a 404 for the garbage collector, if I recall correctly. So I'm not too familiar off the top of my head with what EC2 does for these retirements. If they actually put the instance into a stopped state so you can recover the EBS volume, maybe it makes sense why this wouldn't work.
So it's not a 404, it's a describe with a filter, right?
Oh, that's true. I think, oh, right. So we're filtering on instance state.
But I think that we filter out stopped. We should at least.
And no, I think you're right.
Probably worth like a quick validation. I mean, I don't know. It seems unlikely. Maybe there's like a race here that we missed. It's odd to me that the node got deleted, but the node claim didn't. Like, especially if the finalizer was added, that implies to me that like we didn't, or maybe, yeah, if the finalizer was added, we should just clean it up.
Right.
Do we know where this is again?
Um,
In the parser?
it's an implementation of the parser, but they said they didn't have their SQSQ configured. So I don't think it's surprising that it's not surprising we didn't handle the event initially. That's expected if you didn't set up the SQSQ. But what is surprising is that we left the node claim in the cluster for 15 days and didn't garbage collect it. So I think that's what is still open to investigation.
Okay. I can double check what was happening with the describe here.
Yeah, I'm quite confident Jonathan's right. We do the filter and just check if it's included in the filtered results.
Node claim stranded after node pool deletion. Delete a node pool, subnode claims associated or marked for deletion, but stuck in cannot disrupt node claim. State node is marked for deletion. So let's see. They're in this like in-between state where they have some on V1, some on V1 beta 1.
Still has PVs mounted. That's a bit of a red flag there. We do have the check to wait for volume detachment.
Right.
So, and there is it's not exactly a bug. It's an unfortunate consequence of using the IP name for the node name. Is that you can have, if you leaked volume attachments previously, and you happen to get a node with the same like IP address, they basically rebind to that node, or at least in Karpenter's eyes, because it tries to get node names by or volume attachments by filtering those matching the node name. So I know we've seen a few cases where you have node claims stuck terminating, and it's because there were volume attachments with the same node name previously leaked. So typically because someone removed a finalizer on a PVC.
Okay, so we basically want to go through and problem is that so much has happened in this thread since that original message. And it looks like it became a conversation about the V1 migration.
Yeah, I think we can just, I guess we can ping the original post, like the OP on this thread, and then I don't know if they're still experiencing it. I mean, we can continue having a conversation, but if they're not, we can just probably close it out.
Yeah. Or at least direct to other threads if it's truly about the V1 migration. Think
Yeah,
PV thing is worth looking into a bit more.
yeah, I mean, since this is a really old issue, I don't know if they would have that data, but yeah, that would be worthwhile to point out.
A V1 beta 1 version Karpenter and ISO. So IMDS is not supported. Is that what this is?
We've seen this before in a different issue, I think. Certain regions don't support certain metadata fields. Like it doesn't support a value for that metadata field. It just doesn't support you passing the field at all. I think in this case, might have been HTTP protocol IPv6. That was the problem.
Yeah, and I think they have also linked the issue that Jason you were looking at that someone got around to by editing the CRD that's linked at the bottom.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's currently the workaround is remove the CRD or remove the field from the CRD. Or at least remove the defaulting for the field and allow it to be nil.
Okay, but is that what we is that the workaround that we should recommend here? If yes, then I can respond to this with that.
My 2 cents is probably not. I think we want to minimize recommendations to edit the CRD.
Mhm.
But I
Well,
also don't know where trying to support this natively would fall prioritization wise.
yeah.
I mean, aren't there other ISO unique behaviors.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yes, there are
we-
lots.
right. So as a result, I mean, it's one of the things we want to look into setting up almost like an ISO specific run mode for Karpenter that starts with the things that we know are different. Well, no, well,
Well, from what I know too, this isn't like all ISO regions. This is just some ISO regions.
right.
Yes, because different ISO regions can be very different between each other. Hopefully, we don't have to do a fork per ISO region. I hope not, but there might be weird unicorn behavior in certain regions versus other.
Yeah, I don't think that we would maintain one for, or I don't think we would maintain multiple forks like that.
I think we can, think we can remove the needs triage label though, because we understand the problem. But since not sure when we are going to
Yeah, I think it's probably not even needs investigation.
yeah,
Triage accepted. We know it is a problem. There is a workaround, but I don't think it's something we'd want to.
recommend.
It's not even so much recommend, but I wouldn't close the issue saying this is the way to do it. I would
Yeah.
recommend it as a workaround today to get stuff working.
Mhm.
I'd just be hesitant to make that the official long-term solution. Is yeah, editing
Agreed.
as an official solution feels wrong.
Should we take an AI to update some docs to talk about ISO support? So that way other people looking into doing this know about this issue and others. Like, so we don't explicitly support ISO right now, clearly.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning in the docs, probably somewhere in the compatibility section. Yeah, because I think our ISO support is probably similar to local zones. It should work, but it's not thoroughly tested. The local zones we do have smoke testing now for.
Fill in the rest later. Emmanuel, could you take a quick poll of all the attendees? And then I can update the note later, please.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Carpenter underutilized nodes, disruption causing excessive node churn. So we marked it with help wanted. When did we do that? 2 weeks ago? Looks like community is trying to resolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to tuning specific values, whether that's consolidate after.
Yeah.
Batch windows.
It's a bit of tuning and then the disruption heuristic, right? So Carpenter
Yeah.
removed higher CPU and memory requests. Well, if that's a single pod, that's gigantic. That's in Carpenter's view today, the least disruptive pod.
Mhm.
If expire after is not set. So I know we have a PR in Kubernetes 6 Carpenter to look at utilization as part of the disruption heuristic, but I think we need to still go through and have a larger discussion about what all the disruption heuristic should look like. I know, Jonathan, you and I have talked about trying to figure out what our ideal first node for disruption would look like, and then kind of working back from that. But I will actually leave this open and leave a comment about tuning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like it's hard to, it's such a broad problem space. It's not really a specific bug. There's certainly improvements that can be made. Yeah, I think we can probably take my assignment off of this and just put help wanted. If someone wants to make the docs updates, they can.
Also, triage. Accepted. Cool. Omni selectors docs. I think we've had changes to this since November, so. Seems to say you do not need to pass Omni selectors and only use Omni family, which is wrong because they are required. Can this be updated to show the proper way to auto allow the latest without having to pin it?
Wonder what version that's on. It's possible there was a miss there. Oh no, this has been completely rewritten, I think, since this. I can double check, but this is the managing Omnis page. This isn't the node class.
Some month
Breath.
ago. This only affects docs earlier than 032. The wording is or earlier or equal to 032. The wording is now different and matches the V1 API. The old incorrect documentation seems to reflect the behavior of the V1 Beta 1 API.
Yeah, I think we can just probably mark triage solved. Triage solved or closed. Because yeah.
Migrating from gas page needs to be updated. I know there was a PR out that we're waiting for an update on from the original author. So that's where this is.
Should that probably just be triage accepted?
Yeah. And then also first come, first serve. Insufficient memory for daemon set. When I was reading this, I wasn't sure if this was something where they were adding a daemon set after like later on that was preventing it from being scheduled. Isn't that discussed? There's like daemon sets that tolerate these taints on nodes.
I don't think the tolerations themselves are necessarily an issue. Where you do run into problems with daemon set calculation, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's when you have node selector terms on your daemon sets, and a daemon set would only schedule to say like a subset of a node pool. With those tolerations, I think were all just like the standard Kubernetes, like the memory pressure taint, the etc.
So I think, so for this specific requester, they have found a workaround, and I'm wondering if this is close enough to other daemon set overhead calculation issues that we could link to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it probably still needs investigation to see what it really is.
Yeah, and it links to an open issue that's been open for 2 years. Yeah, I'll take it. CPU performance attribute for instance type selector. I think this would just be added label, right?
Don't I don't know if Avis, I don't know if you can model it as labels. I think we'd have to take a closer look.
Oh, so rather than individual properties, it's like a composite of all of these things together as like a single key. If I'm reading this right.
I think my impression on the whole CPU performance bit is it's not like give me n vCPUs, because vCPUs per like instance generation can have different performance.
But we
Uh,
support clock speed, right?
Hmm?
Don't we support clock speed?
Clock speed's not a good indicator either. You can have wild differences in IPC across generations. I mean, yeah, if you just look at like consumer CPUs over the last 4 or 5 years, their clock speeds have been pretty stagnant. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably not needs and, well, maybe it is.
Well, I'm just curious, like how we would even. How we would even discover this specific attribute. I don't know if it's just like as simple as it's in describe instance types or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, yeah, it's definitely interesting, but yeah, I think we would need to see an RFC on it. Yeah, I don't think it's something super straightforward to just add like one of the other dimensionality labels. Though maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the next step. I can do at least the work to see if it's something that is as simple as it's like if it's a easily discoverable field or value for instance type. And if not, then we can move it to something that is larger, like an RFC.
Sure.
State node is nominated for a pending pod. I see that there are no pending pods. Nodes marked for, this is someone else, but nodes marked for deletion due to expiration, hosts a pod with do not disrupt annotation and an attached volume. Carpenter waits for the volume to detach before proceeding. Carpenter will wait infinitely while pod is running. Also, Carpenter won't evict this pod. At the same time, Carpenter nominates the pod from the node marked for deletion to another node. I think Sarov's PR is what addresses this.
Yeah, I think I saw that he was assigned to this, and that's probably why. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's been following up on it.
Yeah, and I know he had pushed updates. I believe he had pushed updates. I checked with him this morning on this, and it's back with Jonathan. So we at least know where it is. Although I think this is like triage accepted. This isn't needs triage still. Carpenter node provisioning blocked by pending deployment with resource mismatch. Recently observed unexpected behavior at Carpenter. Deployment had resource requirements that didn't match any of the defined node pools, causing associated pods to remain in a pending state for an extended period of time. I mean, this just seems. Total number of nodes in the cluster grew, reaching about 124 nodes. Pending pods and associated errors caused Carpenter to continue provisioning new nodes.
Yeah, so I guess the issue, the potential issue here is that Carpenter mistakenly believes that these pending pods can schedule to nodes on the cluster, causing them to be nominated, preventing consolidation. At least that's their theory.
Well, not just consolidation, but I think on provisioning as well. So provisioning is resulting in fewer pods being scheduled. And so I think we'd have to see their node pool, because I'm wondering if they just aren't. I'm wondering if they've just restricted their instance types such that this happens.
Yeah, I think either way, we can probably just leave it at needs investigation for now and move
Mhm.
on. I don't think we need to figure it out here.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy had something in the chat. Sorry.
No, I haven't been monitoring it.
I think had a issue.
Yeah, it's in the like not in the provider. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about it or not.
I want to take the last 10 minutes to review it. If that works.
Sure, yeah.
Inconsistent pod distribution when using min domains of topology spread constraints when testing between 3 and 2 AZs. So when Karpenter's limited to 2 zones, an application deployed with topology spread constraints with max Q1 and min domains 1 results in the 1 pod being scheduled to each AZ. And they expect the deployment of 10 application pods to go to 5 in each zone. Suspect your node pools for discovering 3 AZs via subnet selectors. Update the subnet selector. So the node class has 2 zones. Or the node pool has 2 zones, sorry. But the EC2 node class has more. Potentially. But when they describe their subnets, they have 1B and 1A. Yeah, probably needs to be looked at.
Yep.
Thankfully, it seems pretty quick to reproduce. Using instance storage details for AWS instance types, page listing different instance types on AWS shows ephemeral storage resource. And as far as I can see, every instance type on the page says 17 gigs. It's under the impression that it is directly attached instance storage, which is not available on every instance type. For example, 16XL should have 15, but S7i Flex 8XL should not have any. I can see. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we just need to emphasize that those values are based on what Kubernetes will discover with Karpenter's defaults like EC2 node class and node pool settings. So you don't get NVMe storage doesn't count towards ephemeral storage by default. You have to enable the RAID 0 flag in the EC2 node class. So by default, the ephemeral storage just comes from the default 20 gigabyte block device, like EBS volume. So, and then with the default overhead, that round comes out to 17 gig of available ephemeral storage.
Are you able to throw that in this issue real quick?
Yeah. Yeah, I can just go ahead and assign it to me.
It's triage. Well, it's not a valid.
I'd just change the label to question from documentation.
Client invalid launch template name not found exception for automatically deleted launch template. What Karpenter version are they on? 37.0. Carpenter automatically creates and deletes the launch template, and this is why it is trying to catch the non-existing launch templates. If the reference launch template does not exist, Carpenter should not be repeating failures due to missing launch template for launch template that are being terminated.
I think they need to show some logs showing it's repeated. I think this happening one off isn't entirely surprising. But Carpenter should remediate it in the following scheduling loop. Also, we probably shouldn't, if we are surfacing that error, we probably shouldn't be. Because it isn't like it isn't an error that a user can remediate. It's just, okay, you need to recreate the launch template and retry because it was automatically cleaned up.
Price range configuration for spot instance requests. We've observed instances where spot instances are being priced at only a 15% discount, which may not be cost effective. We'd like to propose a feature that ensures spot instances are only selected when they offer a discount greater than the savings plan, such as a minimum of 40% off compared to on-demand prices. Tempted to say this is part of node overlay,
Is it?
but I'm not sure. I mean, that's like for modeling. I'm not sure if it's a
No, I think this is basically just requesting an update to our like spot instance type filtering check where we like today we say, okay, we won't launch with spot if the cheapest on-demand instance is cheaper than one of the spot instances. They want to make it so it has to be at least 40% cheaper.
Something that you can just simply do, but not really way. Like you, so you they could in theory.
I don't think so.
An overlay. Why not? They could have an overlay that will reduce spot prices by 40%.
Well, that does the opposite of what they'd want. Okay, I guess theoretically you could.
Yeah.
Well, no, raising the spot price doesn't matter either because provisioning doesn't consider cost, it just considers instance size.
Yeah, I mean, if you did that, I guess for consolidation, you could eventually come to the state that you would prefer to have, right?
Yeah, I don't think I would consider that a solve. Though.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about before too with consolidation, considering something like a consolidation threshold, right? Like even if you do find a consolidation that is valid, don't proceed unless it improves your price by X% or whatever.
Kind of like a PDB, but instead for cost rather than pods.
Hey, cost disruption budget. There you go. A CDB.
PDB.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is something you could effectively model from node overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we put too much stuff in the node overlay bucket, it's never going to solve anything. This feels like a thing that's would be much better as like a budget. But we would need what's the next steps for this? We need the RFC.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
Good enough?
Do we have like a RFC thing we can link to them? Being like, here's the example RFC.
Want to open and
We should have like a template or a default or something, like a best practices.
I think this should be on our contributor.
backwards. Let's see, it needs design. Great.
Do
We
we
did
want
it.
to move on to Jeremy's issue then?
Thanks for your patience, Jeremy. All right. Did you want to go ahead and just kind of reintroduce it? I think this is about the startup taint syncing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, there's a race condition in startup taints where startup taints are applied by the kubelet, and then they're removed in the bad case, they're removed by whatever removes startup taints, and then Karpenter syncs those startup taints back from the node claim. And that's not great. And my thinking is like, why do we need to sync taints from the node claim at all? It seems like the wrong way of handling taints because it's always a race, right? For Karpenter noticing the node versus anything getting scheduled. So it seems like a bad sort of contract for us to give to the Karpenter providers.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think I agree that the main reason we had done it was to simplify the user experience for people using custom Omni family. That way, they only need to register with the Karpenter unregistered taint rather than potentially needing to do a node class per node pool and somehow templating those taints into their user data.
And even then, the unregistered taint has recently changed where it's no longer required. It's just noisy and highly suggested.
Yeah, I don't know. North Star, I definitely agree that us syncing the taints doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think,
Yeah.
at least
Go
for
for it.
me as a custom AMI user, that sync didn't actually do anything for us either. I think removing the requirement around the unregistered chain helped. I wasn't completely sure why, but then yeah, I think it's syncing the chain didn't fix the issue of us not having the unregistered chain, and we still had to go through the effort of trying to coordinate those things.
Yeah, I think the idea was if you have a bunch of node pools with different sets of taints linking to a single node class, you could still do that without making multiple node classes per node pool, specifying the individual taints per node pool in your user data. Yeah, maybe that value isn't worth the trade-off we're seeing here with the races, with the CSI and like EFS drivers. or yeah, the EBS, CSI, EFS, CFS, CSI. I'm sure there's some others.
So without diving back into it too much, this is really mostly present with a custom mommy family then? Or something that we were trying to solve for with syncing for custom mommies?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any reason we need to sync taints for non-custom mommy families because their Karpenter sets the register with taint flag and the generated user data.
Right.
I don't know. My concern about just making a change to not sync it is going to break users who have been relying on that behavior. But obviously there is an issue we need to solve with the races with the CSI driver. So I don't think yeah, I definitely don't think our current state is one we can stay in either.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny when I was typing it out, but I was like, oh, this is a breaking change. Like this is technically for for the non-provider Carpenter core. It's a major version change, I guess, because it's a breaking change for the as a library. But yeah, the current status quo has a race condition, and I think we need to solve that.
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, I think that part of I forgot the issue was, can we just sync the unregister and nothing else?
Well, the problem is, well, we don't want to sync the registration taint. That's actually the taint we don't want to sync. We want to ensure that that's present. So no nodes schedule before we sync the actual user defines taints. The problem if we just stop syncing taints is that if there are any users who have custom user data and they weren't registering their taints, like they set their taints on the node pool, they weren't registering the taints via their user data. Suddenly, once they upgrade Karpenter with like this change that stops syncing, their nodes will come up with no taints and there won't be any mechanism to sync them on and they'll get odd scheduling to their nodes that shouldn't. So that's the breaking change concern.
Yeah. Is it is that like a blocking change, or is it just we're gonna need to bite the bullet to solve the race condition and just bump Karpenter major version?
Well, so as far as major version goes, we're not really using Semver for the upstream library. I don't think we would bump the major version. We don't treat any of the APIs in the upstream library as stable already.
Okay.
You can, I guess this is a dumb question, but I don't think you can ever win the race, right?
Well, if you don't sync it, there's no issue.
Right. But like if we were moving forward, like attempting to win the race.
No,
there's no guaranteed way to win.
Right.
I think the alternative would be to work with like the CSI teams to, rather than just remove the taint once, continuously reconcile it off.
That's only the CSI, right? There could be other startup teams that.
Yeah, it would be playing whack-a-mole. So, I mean, the CSI ones are like the biggest ones we know of, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It would affect other products as well, or it could.
So is there consensus then that this needs to be changed, and I can hopefully get my change merged, or?
Yeah, I'd be curious what other people's opinions are. I think it probably is something we just need to bite the bullet on and communicate clearly.
I mean, is it something that we just call out specifically for the custom Omni family than for handling for custom.
What's he mean? I think the answer is yes, but it shouldn't affect any other Omni families.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how that would even be modeled in upstream code anyway.
Yeah, it would probably, well, no, I think we can just stop syncing altogether. Or at the very least, stop syncing. I think we could probably still sync taints and just not sync startup taints if we wanted to try and minimize impact.
Yeah, so keep labels, keep taints, remove startup taint.
I think it would also be good to probably get some feedback from the Azure folks as well. I don't think anyone from them is on this call, which I mean makes sense.
So we were talking a little bit about it. The unregistered taint. I know we're not requiring it, but we are noisy about it. And I'm wondering if you can get some of this similar behavior.
Well, the unregistered taint doesn't really help, right? Or, oh, are you saying like if you have startup taints and we see your node does not register with them, be noisy like, hey, you have a misconfiguration, update your user data.
Something like that, or some other way to possibly gate for a startup taint where the unregistered taint is the last remaining taint.
But that, I mean, it's the race condition, right?
What I mean is, keep fetching until it is the only startup taint remaining.
Well, the problem is the taints don't get added in the first place. The problem right now is if the CSI driver goes to remove the taint before Karpenter syncs the taint over,
Yeah.
once Karpenter syncs the taint, it's never going to try and act against it again, and we're stuck. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding of the issue.
So what I mean is like CSI has removed their taint. Karpenter has no concept of that taint before it attempts to make any patch call. Like if we want some of the syncing behavior still there, could we not rely on this reconcile loop basically saying, okay, if the only remaining taint is unregistered, and again, it's not required, but basically it expects to see either just the unregistered or no startup taints.
I don't think I follow. We're not going to be, our current behavior is we sync startup taints after, well, in simultaneously as we remove the registered taint. So currently we don't expect any startup taints to be on the node at launch, at least in upstream.
Yeah, okay, I see your point.
So
But
this is basically changing an invariant where it's, okay, now we expect that the provider needs to add, needs to register the node with this set of taints. And that's where I know for AWS, we understand the impact. I think it would be worth discussing. I think we have working group this week. Probably be worth discussing there so we can get some of the feedback from the Azure folks. We're just reaching out to them directly in the Karpenter Slack to see what impacts they have. Probably same with Cappy.
yeah,
Okay.
I can send off or Jeremy, if you want to reach out, I can provide some names for.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know who to contact. I have a thread open already in the Carpenter Dev Slack.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, we can follow up there. Great. Well, thanks all. I think we can wrap it up here for now. We'll continue with this offline, Jeremy. Thanks again for raising it.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you guys.